Hey, I got some big news. I just wrote a book. And if you know me or anybody else who knew me, trust me, I am not a great writer. I am not a great editor. I'm not even a great reader. I read books every couple pages a day. I'm not the best. So you might be asking me, why did I write a book and how did I even start? If you stick through the end of this video, I'll tell you 3 strategies that really helped me lock in and write a book that I'm about to publish this year. Writing a book is not easy, first and foremost, I can tell you that now, especially for the people who actually write the books. And this is no shade to people who have ghostwriters or people who help them co-write the book, but this is for the people who actually sit down and behind the desk and write 500 to 1,000 words a day. I respect y'all so much more. This process of sitting down and writing a book has been A, eye-opening, B, gruesome, because it's just sitting down and writing. There is no instant gratification that comes from it, because you want to write the book and just end it in one day, but it takes time. This book took me 2 years to finish writing. There was a lot of editing, there was a lot of deleting, there's a lot of starting and stopping, there's a lot of frustration. What am I doing? This is crazy. I shouldn't be writing this book. Who wants to listen to me? What do I know? I'm not an author. Those are all words that I was telling myself as I was writing it, and almost believed it. Almost. It only took 2 years, but I finally finished. And these are some things that I've learned for anybody out there that wants to put pen to paper and write their own book. The hardest thing I honestly think that I experienced writing a book was honestly just starting. There was many brainstorm sessions, many days of analysis paralysis, many days of starting and deleting just the title. I was starting on the title. I didn't even know what I wanted to write. And then exactly, just figuring out what you want to write. There were so many frustrating days of that before I even put a single word on that paper. The hardest thing that I had to realize was just sitting down and starting was so hard, because I felt like I had to be perfect. I had to have the most clever punchline, the most theatrical entrance to a book, especially your first book. You're wanting to make this impressive. And for me, I grew up reading the Junie B. Jones, the Cam Jansen's, the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe books, all these books that I were accustomed to seeing at the Scholastic Book Fair, that I was like, do I want to write a children's book or do I want to go for a full-length novel? I came into the middle ground because I had to realize I had to write what was passionate for me. What was I a quote unquote a pro at, where I knew enough about so I could talk about with reason. I think most people don't start because they don't know what they want to talk about. They don't know what they feel like they're qualified to even speak about in that space. And for me, I looked at all the struggles that I went through in life, and I really thought that this could be something somebody else is struggling with, and let's talk about it. So I ended up choosing about my sports journey in general. The book is called Laces Up Now, what is going to be releasing this year. But I wrote about the book because I knew when I was done playing football that there was a moment of, as soon as I took my cleats off, sitting in my locker, the words that came in my head was, what's next? Now what? Am I going to go play pro? Will I even have an opportunity? Am I going to join the workforce? What can I even do with my degree? I know a lot of athletes, we think that, what can I do with my degree? Some people are comm majors, some people are ecom, some people are Africana studies. I was a business major. I was like, maybe I'll get into business. There were so many different things that were running through my head. I just didn't know what to do. And it took me down a very dark path. And I had this one quote that I really heard that resonated one with me. It said that each of us are unique, but not by our experiences. Just because I went through one thing, I know somebody else has gone through it as well. And it sucks, it's heartbreaking, but trust me, it's very much a place where we as humans could really empathize with each other and find common ground. And people who have high EQs can really relate, because it's easy to build that relationship. It's easy to understand where somebody's coming from and to guide them and give them assistance, which is what I wanted to do. So, all that to say, the hardest thing was actually sitting down in front of my desk and start typing, because I didn't know what to write. So honestly, I just wrote what came to my head. I was super imperfect about it. I didn't have a clever line. I just wrote what I wanted to see. And over time, I came back and revised it, but I just started writing I started with the first chapter. I didn't even start with the introduction. I started with the first topic that I wanted to talk about. So it's all that to say to you is, don't be perfect about it. Be messy as fuck. Just truly be messy. Allow yourself to be not perfect, and you'll come back and correct it. Trust me, it gets easier as you write, but don't think that you have to be perfect, especially when you're trying to put your first words down. Be messy. Don't even let it make sense, but just put something down. It all works out. The next transition after finally putting words on paper or on Microsoft Word or whatever you want to say was how many words should I write? That was the hardest thing for me. I underestimated how many words and pages these books were. I thought most books were under 50,000 words when I realized that they weren't. I really wanted to write a manifesto type personal development book, and I thought 20,000 words was good enough. Only to end up reaching out to an agent and they said, you need a little bit more before we take you seriously. So I had to sit down and double it. I had to write 50,000 words in my first book to fill out an actual chapter book with substance. Because one thing I wanted this book to have was substance. And I quickly realized that 25 to 20,000 words was just not gonna cut it. There was too many things that I was leaving on the table, too many things that I wasn't incorporating. And as you start writing, you start realizing, man, this is gonna get pretty lengthy, but in a good way. You want to be able to get everything out. I don't really see myself writing a lot of other books, but I really wanted to make this count. I really wanted to put what I was feeling in my heart, and not just what I feel in my heart. I started interviewing people. And when I started interviewing them, I started putting their words in. And it just made the book exponentially bigger. So I had to realize, expand what a book looked like, and do some research, and then get some feedback from other people who are actually writing the book or producing books or have experience in the novel space. The third hardest thing that I realized as I was writing this book was, does it make sense? I'm not good with editing and proofreading. I'm just somebody that usually writes and edits as they go. And when you get to 20,000 words and you really don't have any kind of editing and proofreading, it gets kind of hard to figure out. I knew personally, but when you have somebody else read it for you, they're trying to figure out, hey, you use this kind of lingo, it's not going to fly in the book. Because not everybody uses your slang. Not everybody understands your terms. So you're going to have to make it more generalized for the general public. I had to understand of editing, run-on sentences, all these little things that I was just writing and it didn't really look too much into until it got too long. So I'm just thankful for a lot of good friends who are really good in the space of writing and writing talents to be able to give me some critiques, give me some editing tips. And then shout out to these AI tips these days. ChatGPT, all these AI, Google's intelligence. Oh, there's so many different AI things that help me along. Otter AI helped me transcribe a lot of what my interviews with the other athletes were, to summarize it and put it into the book. Because at that point now, I was just writing everything down. It was looking pretty crazy. But shout out to, there's so many tools and tips these days that you can lean on so you don't have to do it yourself. Because I promise you, it's gonna overwhelm you if you have to sit down and do everything, transcribe, edit, and because some people pay for that. And I know obviously when I get to the point where getting it in front of publishers, they're gonna do their edits as well. But for me, as just writing the book, being by myself, not having the resources, but being resourceful, it really helped a lot. So I would recommend people going that avenue, especially when you're having to do everything as a one-man army or one-man team. And the last thing that honestly I found so hard when writing this book, the process of writing this book, was thinking what others are gonna say about me. I was worrying so much of the judgment of others as I was writing the book that it caused me so many months, weeks of heartbreak, of pausing, of questioning, am I supposed to be doing this? What if it fails? What if I look like a failure? What if it flops? And I was just in my head so much that I honestly could have been done way earlier. I could have finished it earlier. I could have been more articulate in my words, but I was always questioning, does this make sense? Are people gonna call me a fraud because I'm not an author? Because I had to realize I am an author. But in my mind, I just saw myself as just a football player. What do I know? Who wants to listen to me? Who wants to hear from a guy that barely even played professional? Who wants to listen to a dude that at the end of the day didn't play in the Super Bowl? He's not famous. He doesn't have 10 Pro Bowls. I always thought to myself, nobody wants to hear my voice. And I really looked at myself. I had low self-esteem because of it. So writing the book was a challenge for me because I had to truly believe in myself. And the more I started telling people about my book, the more support I got. Pretty strange, isn't it? The more I started telling people about my book, the more people said that they needed this book, the more seen they felt. And just hearing that brought a tear to my eye because at the end of the day, I knew that I was on the right path. I knew that my words mattered because, like I said, we might be unique, but not our experiences. I went through something. I went through being cut. Somebody else went through being cut. I went through inadequacy. Somebody else went through inadequacy. I went through depression. Somebody else went through depression. There's so many stories that are just being piled up and held up in our own minds and our own brains. And I wanted to put it on paper for the people that have never said it out loud. At least they know that they're being seen and they're being represented. The average professional lifespan is 3 years. I got to that point. I shouldn't feel like a failure. Because there's even hundreds of thousands of people that are just like me that need a voice. And I was excited and I was honored to finally put that voice on paper. I wanted to write this book for the 98% of people who don't play forever. I wanted to write this book for the 98% of people who reach for a dream, not just in football, but in all sports of life. And they're going through this huge transition and don't know what to lean into. I wrote this book for them. I wrote this book for the person who's dealing with anxiety, who's dealing with lostness, who's feeling aimless in life because their career is done. I wrote this book for that person that's sitting in their locker right now, thinking to themselves, now what? Whether it was through an injury, through your season being done, through retirement, through old age, through whatever. We all have that moment of saying, now what? Thank you for watching this video, and if you liked it, please like and subscribe.